Breaking news tonight, the new video of the deadly Minneapolis shooting filmed by the ICE officer who opened fire. The video revealing new details and raising new questions. The ICE officer's cell phone capturing the key moments with Renee Good before she was killed. The new vantage point sparking divided reactions. We'll play out the entire video for you and break it down moment by moment, what it potentially reveals. Also tonight, protests in the streets of Portland after another shooting by federal agents. 2 people wounded. What we're learning about their possible gang ties. U.S. forces seizing yet another Venezuela oil tanker at sea as top oil execs meet President Trump. What they're demanding. Plus, I pressed the U.S. Energy Secretary about claims the U.S. is holding Venezuelan oil hostage at gunpoint. Deadly shark attack in Paradise, an American killed. We hear from the man who ran into the water to try and save her. An explosive launch near a lawmaker in Honduras, coming within just inches of her, how she survived. Hole in the wall heist, thieves bursting through a building, making off with $500,000 in jewelry. And sometimes the little guy wins. The brave tiny deer taking on a massive rhino in an incredible zoo standoff. Plus, could Luigi Mangione stand trial by the end of the year? We'll explain what happened in his hearing today. Top story starts right now. Good evening. We begin tonight with the new video of that deadly confrontation in Minneapolis. The new vantage point coming from the cell phone of the ICE officer who shot and killed 37-year-old Renee Good. In it, you see the encounter with Good and her wife who engages with him outside the car. Here is that entire video in full.
Change our plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen, former. You want to come at us? You want to come at us? I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out of the car. Get out of the car. Get out of the car.
Oh!
Good.
That video providing a whole new perspective on the fatal moment we saw in this angle taken from the other side of the car, which came out earlier this week. You will remember this moment. It sparked days of protests in Minneapolis. This new video doing nothing to bridge the divide over the situation there. The National Guard standing by as the city braces for a potential weekend of unrest. But it's not just Minneapolis. Anti-ICE protests erupting nationwide as the Trump administration continues to stand by ICE and its officers. Maggie Vespa is on the ground once again for us tonight in Minnesota. And Dana Griffin, she's live in Portland, where late last night, a different federal officer shot 2 people. We want to begin with that new cell phone video. We've got several experts here to walk us through what we see. Former NYPD Chief Terry Monahan, NBC legal analyst Danny Savalos, NBC National Law Enforcement Intelligence correspondent Tom Winter, and NBC law enforcement analyst and former Secret Service agent Evie Pompouras. We thank you all for being here tonight. Tom, I'm going to start with you. We still don't know what took place to get to that car. Why that car was in the middle of the road. The police chief in Minneapolis saying it was blocking ICE interaction. But there is an important moment at the beginning of the video. Walk us through that.
Right, exactly. And just to give people kind of a sense of the context of all this, we're looking at the officer here who's been identified as Jonathan Ross. This is the ICE officer who was involved in the shooting. You can see the cell phone right here. So as we look at this video, and the video that we just watched, this is the cell phone that's recording it, just so people get an understanding. Here's now the video. As we start to watch this, we start to watch the interaction that's occurring between all the individuals. We start to hear the interaction that they're having here with the driver, Renee Good, and what she is saying and doing or not doing, clearly interacting with them. The situation appears to be somewhat calm here. And then there's an interaction with a person believed to be, and I want to pause it right here, a person believed to be her partner. Just a few seconds ago, we were looking at the license plate right there. And I've talked to a couple of law enforcement officials today, actually half a dozen that are actual officers, either currently on the job in other places or have retired, said, you know, was this a moment where the officer's starting to note that this is the license plate? Is there a further investigation? Was this a a car that they were looking for, all questions that they would have for the investigators. We can continue to play the video now, and you'll see some further interactions that occurred, again, believed to be between Good and her partner. You're looking at her there with the cell phone video. That is believed to be the cell phone video we've been, frankly, watching all week. And then I want to pause the video in just a second right now. We're going to hear an important part here. We're going to hear a bit of a dialogue between Good's partner and officers, but then I want us to listen closely because these law enforcement and legal experts say there's a critical moment here where the officers are directly speaking to the driver, Renee Good. Let's listen.
Out of the car. Get out of the car. Get out of the car.
They say on several occasions, at least 3, to get out of the car. Now, I've talked to law enforcement experts. I've also talked to legal experts, both on the prosecution and the defense side. One of the things that they're pointing out here is that if she's given a lawful order to comply, if that order is lawful, that she must then comply. She has to get out of the car. Now, those experts are quick to say, is that a reason for this to end up in a fatal shooting? No, not necessarily, but they do say that at that point, she needed to get out of the car. We can continue to watch here, and obviously, this is going to get to a moment where this gets quite violent. There are shots now that are fired. You saw very briefly there, and we'll slow it down for you in just a second, how the car left, and we can bring up that video now. The whole incident here, Tom, from the moment they say to get out of the car, we're going to look at it here, is she's starting to turn the wheel. She is facing front at this point. That was a question we had. Which direction was she facing when she started to turn the wheels of the car? She's facing front. You're looking at it there. This will all be part of the investigation. All the things that the investigators for the FBI will be looking at, the special agents. That is going to be a critical point. Another thing, we see this officer now, this is the second time just before the shooting. We see the officer cross in front of the car. There's been some questions about those tactics. All told, 7 seconds between they tell her to get out of the car, Tom, and from the moment those shots are fired. It's very fast.
Tom, we thank you for that. I'm going to ask our director to kind of keep running that video because I want to mark key moments with our panel here. Danny, I'm going to actually start with you on the legal part. Tom highlighted the fact that you hear the ICE agents saying they use some colorful language, but to get out of the car. I heard you earlier say that that's an important point. Why?
It's an important point because the Supreme Court has long said, you remember the case, Chief Mims, you know it, right? Mims is a case that says that officers during a lawful car stop. Now, here's what's interesting. This isn't a traditional car stop. This isn't a busted taillight situation, although arguably it is because they're blocking the road. But here's the thing. ICE agents are not really in the business of conducting car stops the way police are, state troopers. However, once an exit order is given, they don't need probable cause of a crime. It can be just for pursuant to the stop and for officer safety. And that has long been the Supreme Court law.
Chief, we're obviously looking at this video, not to figure out who exactly was right or who was wrong, but basically how we got to this situation and if there will be a prosecution. Watching the ICE officer's actions here, are you seeing anything in the training that maybe he shouldn't have done?
First off, once the other officer started to order that individual out of the car and her partner was going to the passenger door, he should have went to the passenger door. Tactically, why are you crossing in front of the vehicle? You see her crossing. He put himself in a level of danger. He can now easily go to the passenger, prevent that other female from getting into the car, and at that point, they could both try and extract him. And if the car starts pulling out, no one's in that zone of danger.
No one knows how this is going to turn out. The walking around the vehicle with the cell phone camera in his hand, is that normal? Is that something that ICE does? To me, that seemed something sort of out of the ordinary.
ICE, it appears, does not have body cameras. Police officers would just have their body camera on. There would be absolutely no reason for them to have a phone to film it. He seen that he was filming. He wanted to get that plate down in case his vehicle has been involved in other incidences that may have been impeding how ICE was doing their operations. So the idea now, you have a phone in one hand at some point, and by the video, you can't really tell at what point he pulls his gun. But you see in the reflections in the car, you don't see a gun in his hand, so I'm not sure at what point that gun comes out.
Evie, you're watching the body language. You're seeing the smiling here. He's walking around the vehicle. The woman who died, her partner is, sort of, I want to say, testing him, saying, go get your lunch, big boy, kind of making fun of him in a sense.
She's also right behind him, following him at 6 o'clock, too, and trailing him as well.
With something in her hand as well. What does that do as a law enforcement officer? Does that put more pressure on you? And do you think, as somebody who's been out there in the field, that ICE officer ever knew it was going to get to that point, even though he has been dragged in the past?
So it's interesting because I started as an NYPD, then went to federal, so I went to both training academies, and there are some differences there. NYPD, they're used to doing traffic stops, car stops. Federal law enforcement, we're not typically doing those because we're not pulling people over. However, I kind of look at this, you look at the force of continuum, which is she's blocking the road, they're using sirens, she's not getting out of the way. Verbal commands are the first force of continuum. Then it escalates, she doesn't move, they get out of the car, they approach the vehicle, giving her commands, still nothing. And then we didn't get to this part yet, which we'll get to, and then we start to see the movement. They go to open the door, and then she hits the gas and moves. So I think I think what he was doing, honestly, because of all that's happening, he's documenting it. He's thinking, he's documenting. I don't think it occurred to him that she would hit the gas and try to do that. That's what I think. And I do agree with what you were saying before, Chief, in that he went from, I don't know how quickly he switched from phone to weapon, because that was
when the car
quick.
comes at him.
That's a pretty quick switch, though. I'm just thinking maneuver hand-wise. I'm thinking that phone possibly. I'm not sure what the assessment is yet. I don't know if she hit him or it dropped, right? Because it seems to me it could have even dropped, and then he went for his weapon. These are really fast moves to make within seconds.
Tom, one thing we do know, going back to Tom Winter, one thing we do know from the video is that she clearly knew that the person in front of her was an ICE officer, and that there was somebody in front of her. You can see make eye contact.
100%. When they approach the vehicle, it's clear that she understands who they are. We're hearing the sirens in the background. We don't see it on this video, but on the video that you and I looked at earlier this week, Tom, there are flashing lights on the unmarked vehicle that are there. So this is clearly not a couple of guys that are walking up to her car. It's clearly that it's law enforcement.
Danny, what is the law? She has to stop. She has to put it in park. She should not still be in reverse. The questions I'm getting at is, will this ICE officer be prosecuted? Because you have a pretty strong stance on this.
Yeah, this is a great question. So that's a twofold question. Will the ICE officer face either prosecution at the federal level or the state level? The federal level, it seems impossible. His boss of bosses, the president himself, almost immediately tweeted out or put on social media that there was nothing wrong with what the ICE officer did. It'd be pretty hard to prosecute someone under these circumstances when everybody in the command structure has already come out in favor of this ICE agent.
What does the law say, though? Yeah, what does the law state?
Well, then the legal analysis is different. Whether a state prosecutor can bring charges against a federal agent in the course of his duties, it can be done. But ordinarily, when it is done, both federal and state authorities are in agreement. That's not going to happen here. And here's where I think you may even have a constitutional crisis, Tom, is what if state prosecutors say, give us that guy, and the Trump administration says, no, we'll never do it? What happens then?
Chief Monahan, if he was one of your officers, and I know this is tough, and this is Monday morning quarterbacking, we can't get in the mind of that officer. And again, for context here, this is somebody who was dragged 100 yards in another ICE event by a suspect. He is somebody who had been through it with a vehicle. With that car coming at him, did he make the right call? And can we even ask that question, because we can never get in someone's mind like that and be in that split-second decision?
Well, when you look at guidelines, the guidelines that the NYPD has in place and was accepted through the Police Executive Research Forum, through law enforcement around the country, is you don't shoot at a moving vehicle unless deadly physical force other than that vehicle is being utilized against you. Because that bullet isn't going to stop that car. Shooting that woman isn't going to stop that car. So our guidelines tell us we should not shoot at that point. So that shooting may or may not be within our guidelines. But that's not the law. The law is whether or not that individual, when he fired that gun, thought he was facing a deadly circumstance. A comment we use, it's awful but lawful. That's the potential that something like this could be.
Eva, real quick, I want to get you in here before the end. What do you think in that situation?
The court's going to look at, when you go through training, they tell you the court's going to look at what did you believe in that moment was happening. Is it reasonable for that officer to believe in that moment that that vehicle is going to hit him? And if he feels that I have imminent bodily harm or threat to myself or even potentially somebody else, he can articulate that. But so we can Monday morning quarterback this and watch this 52 times. He had seconds. He might not even have seen her doing the arm turn with the wheel. It's just happening so fast. 2 seconds? And it's the decision he made in that moment. So the court is going to take into consideration his viewpoint as well.
Okay, Evie, Terry, Danny, and Tom, we thank you so much. Great panel here on a very difficult topic. This video sparking reactions, as you can imagine, today in Minneapolis and across the country. Here's Maggie Vespa with that part of the story.
That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you. Tonight, that cell phone video showing the deadly confrontation from the perspective of ICE officer Jonathan Ross.
Get out of the car.
now sparking the same divided reactions as those other videos of the fatal encounter. Vice President Vance tonight saying the new video supports the ICE officer's response, posting, "Watch this, as hard as it is. Many of you have been told this law enforcement officer wasn't hit by a car, wasn't being harassed, and murdered an innocent woman. The reality is that his life was endangered and he fired in self-defense." But we found a different view here in Renee Good's neighborhood.
They're a little confrontational, but with a smile on their face, and to be shot for that, I just don't get it.
We spoke to Reverend Ashley Horan, who lived near Good.
It is terrifying to watch the callousness with which they approached her. It takes 2 seconds for them to decide to end a human life, and then to demonize her at the moment that they have just shot her.
But DHS saying the ICE officer was injured and correctly acted in self-defense.
She put her foot on the gas, and unfortunately our law enforcement, he followed his training, but he did fire defensive shots.
While today, Good's wife, Rebecca, who was there at the scene, speaking out for the first time since Good's death, telling the Washington Post they had stopped to support our neighbors and that we had whistles, they had guns, saying of the mother of 3, she is pure love. She is pure joy.
Maggie Vespa joins us now from St. Paul. And Maggie, we see protesters and some maybe federal officers there behind you. We understand there have been clashes. I know there's a lot of tension over how this is going to be investigated.
Yeah, Tom, exactly. So we're outside the local ICE headquarters. For context, you can see the protesters here over my shoulder. And then if we swing this way, we have federal officers here who have basically been working to get employee vehicles into ICE headquarters tonight. And just a few minutes ago, we had a major clash between them, officers using some sort of pepper spray, seemingly tackling one protester to the ground. The crowd is kind of backed up as a result, but it's incredibly tense going into the weekend. The Trump administration sending more than 100 border agents here to the Minneapolis area with more protests expected over the shooting. Tom?
Maggie Vespa live for us tonight. Maggie, you and your crew be safe. We can hear that screaming there in the background. Now to that shooting in Portland, also involving federal officers. Homeland Security says Border Patrol agents were trying to apprehend 2 suspects linked to the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua when the suspects drove into them. Dana Griffin joins us now from Portland. Dana, police giving an update there. What are we learning tonight?
So, Tom, they say that these 2 suspects are stable and that they are, quote, on the road to recovery. They can also confirm independently that they are, in fact, linked to that TDA gang. This shooting unfolded in the parking lot of a medical office, DHS releasing their photos. Luis Moncada and passenger Yorelinas Zambrano Contreras saying both were in the U.S. illegally and that Yorelinas played an active role in a TDA prostitution ring and was involved in a prior shooting. Now, DHS says on Thursday they attempted to drive into the officers and an agent fired in self-defense. Overnight, we had heated protest outside the Portland ICE facility. Police say 6 people were arrested for disorderly conduct. And now Democratic leaders here in the city are calling for the Trump administration to stop those ICE enforcement operations in the city while they conduct some sort of independent investigation into the shooting incident. Tom?
Okay, Dana Griffin for us. Dana, thank you. We want to move overseas now to the dramatic scenes playing out in the streets of Iran. As demonstrations against the regime escalate, human rights groups say dozens of protesters have been killed. Chief Foreign Correspondent Richard Engel has the latest.
Amid mass protests across Iran, the most significant challenge to the country's Islamic revolutionary government in years. Today, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, showed no signs of compromise. Instead, he was defiant, calling the protesters foreign agents and comparing President Trump to a pharaoh who will fail at the peak of his power. In response to the protests, with Iranians in some cases directly confronting the feared security forces, the Iranian government has cut the internet, making it extraordinarily difficult for the protesters to organize, communicate, and show their uprising to the world. In the digital darkness, anti-government activists tell NBC News Iranian security forces are now carrying out massacres to stop the movement. Iran hasn't commented, but President Trump tonight reiterated his threat to attack Iran.
I just hope the protesters in Iran are going to be safe, because it's a very dangerous place right now. And again, I tell the Iranian leaders, you better not start shooting, because we'll start shooting too.
Activists are also making comparisons to what just happened in Venezuela. On the one hand, they're encouraged because they saw President Trump take a direct action to remove the leader of an oppressive regime. But they also worry deeply that President Trump will repeat the same pattern and just remove Iran's top leaders, but leave the security forces in place. They fear that if that happens, the security forces in Iran will hunt down the protesters and kill them. Tom.
All right, Richard Engel for us on that turmoil in Iran. We're back in a moment with the seizure of another oil tanker in the Caribbean. We pressed the U.S. Energy Secretary about what it all means for controlling the flow of oil from Venezuela. Plus, an American woman killed after getting attacked by a shark in the U.S. Virgin Islands. We'll hear from the man who rushed into the water to save her. And a shocking car crash in Canada, sending a driver flying off a bridge down to an icy river. The dramatic video ahead on Top Story. We're back with a deadly shark attack in the U.S. Virgin Islands. A Minnesota woman on vacation bitten while swimming just off the shore. Dramatic video shows a Good Samaritan rushing into the ocean to desperately try and save her. Jesse Kirsch has the story.
This is the moment Good Samaritan Christopher Carroll rushes into the water off St. Croix. He says he spotted someone struggling roughly 50 yards from shore.
There were people shouting, "Don't go, there's a shark, don't go, there's a shark." But I didn't hear any of it.
You have no memory of hearing that?
I didn't hear it at all. And then my second clue should have been that nobody was in the water.
Carroll says when he got closer, he saw blood in the water.
Her arm had been amputated below the elbow. At that point, I knew it was a big, big shark.
Terrified the shark might still be nearby, Carroll grabbed the woman and began the desperate swim back to shore as another bystander rushed in to help. The victim, 56-year-old Arlene Lillis, was still conscious.
She said she didn't think she was going to make it. I told her she was going to be okay, and I just kept trying to reassure her that she wasn't alone. That, you know, we were going to get her help and get her to the hospital.
Police in the U.S. Virgin Islands say Lillis, who was from Minnesota, later died. Officials adding that shark bites are not common here. And tonight, Lillis's neighbor in St. Croix is remembering a grandmother who was full of life.
She loved the water. She loved people. She's just a wonderful human being.
Jesse joins us now live from Miami. Jesse, this is interesting. We talked about how rare these shark attacks are there in the U.S. Virgin Islands, but officials are now confirming a separate recent shark attack?
That's right, Tom. This is about an incident in California from last month. There was a woman who had been missing for days. Her body was later recovered. This was something that was potentially looked at as a shark bite incident, and authorities are now saying they've determined her cause of death was in fact tied to a shark attack. Tom.
Okay, Jesse, we thank you for that. Still ahead on Top Story, a key hearing today for an accused killer, Luigi Mangione. What we're learning about when his federal trial could start. Plus the massive heist straight out of a movie, thieves busting through a wall and tying up a worker before making off with $500,000 in jewelry. But first, Top Story's top moment and the modern day David and Goliath battle at one zoo in Poland, I should say. You see here a small deer taking on a rhino weighing over 1 ton. Then at first, the hesitant deer thinks for a second, then charges at the rhino. The zoo saying the deer was filled with testosterone because his female companion was elsewhere. Okay, the deer goes on to chase the rhino around before scaring him away, proving sometimes it's the little guys that come out on top, or the guys on T. All right, stay with us. More on Top Story straight ahead. We're back with a deadly shark attack in the U.S. Virgin Islands. A Minnesota woman on vacation bitten while swimming just off the shore. Dramatic video shows a Good Samaritan rushing into the ocean to desperately try and save her. Jesse Kirsch has the story.
This is the moment Good Samaritan Christopher Carroll rushes into the water off St. Croix. He says he spotted someone struggling roughly 50 yards from shore.
There were people shouting, "Don't go, there's a shark, don't go, there's a shark." But I didn't hear any of it.
You have no memory of hearing that?
I didn't hear it at all. And then my second clue should have been that nobody was in the water.
Carroll says when he got closer, he saw blood in the water.
Her arm had been amputated below the elbow. At that point, I knew it was a big, big shark.
Terrified the shark might still be nearby, Carroll grabbed the woman and began the desperate swim back to shore as another bystander rushed in to help. The victim, 56-year-old Arlene Lillis, was still conscious.
She said she didn't think she was going to make it. I told her she was going to be okay, and I just kept trying to reassure her that she wasn't alone. That, you know, we were going to get her help and get her to the hospital.
Police in the U.S. Virgin Islands say Lillis, who was from Minnesota, later died. Officials adding that shark bites are not common here. And tonight, Lillis's neighbor in St. Croix is remembering a grandmother who was full of life.
She loved the water. She loved people. She's just a wonderful human being.
Jesse joins us now live from Miami. Jesse, this is interesting. We talked about how rare these shark attacks are there in the U.S. Virgin Islands, but officials are now confirming a separate recent shark attack?
That's right, Tom. This is about an incident in California from last month. There was a woman who had been missing for days. Her body was later recovered. This was something that was potentially looked at as a shark bite incident, and authorities are now saying they've determined her cause of death was in fact tied to a shark attack. Tom.
Okay, Jesse, we thank you for that. Still ahead on Top Story, a key hearing today for an accused killer, Luigi Mangione. What we're learning about when his federal trial could start. Plus the massive heist straight out of a movie, thieves busting through a wall and tying up a worker before making off with $500,000 in jewelry. But first, Top Story's top moment and a modern day David and Goliath battle at one zoo in Poland, I should say. You see here a small deer taking on a rhino weighing over 1 ton. Then at first, the hesitant deer thinks for a second, then charges at the rhino. The zoo saying the deer was filled with testosterone because his female companion was elsewhere. Okay, the deer goes on to chase the rhino around before scaring him away, proving sometimes it's the little guys that come out on top, or the guys on T. All right, stay with us. More on Top Story straight ahead. We're back now with the major meeting at the White House tonight. President Trump gathering with top oil executives to discuss investing in Venezuela, though some are hesitant to commit. And it comes as the U.S. seized yet another oil tanker near Venezuela. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez reports from neighboring Colombia once again tonight.
Tonight, the U.S. has seized its 5th tanker in its recent campaign to control the flow of oil to and from Venezuela. In this dramatic video, U.S. forces overtaking the ship known as the Olena in the Caribbean.
One of the things the United States gets out of this will be even lower energy prices.
President Trump today meeting with American oil executives at the White House, offering them security guarantees for rebuilding oil infrastructure in an uncertain Venezuela. Some executives appeared skeptical.
We've had our assets seized there twice, and so you can imagine to re-enter a 3rd time would require some pretty significant changes. Today, it's uninvestable.
Tom just spoke with Energy Secretary Chris Wright.
Democrats are saying the Trump administration is stealing Venezuela's oil at gunpoint and holding it hostage, essentially, to run the country. What do you say to that?
Oh, complete nonsense. Both of the premises are just ridiculous. Number one, we're not stealing anyone's oil. We're marketing that oil, putting it into accounts controlled by the U.S. government, and sending funds to Venezuela.
The president also says he plans to expand his military campaign in Latin America, indicating that Mexico may be next.
We are going to start now hitting land with regard to the cartels. The cartels are running Mexico.
While laying out his vision on a president's power.
See any checks on your power on the world stage? Is there anything that could stop you if you wanted to?
Yeah, there's one thing, my own morality, my own mind. I don't need international law. I'm not looking to hurt people.
The president now says he's called off a previously expected second wave of attacks on Venezuela due to its cooperation with the U.S., including the release of political prisoners.
I don't think it's going to be necessary to do the second wave.
Gabe Gutierrez joins us again from Colombia. And Gabe, the U.S. is now sending a delegation to Caracas to look at restoring diplomatic relations. And I know you're also following another big meeting that's going to happen at the White House next week.
Yeah, that's right, Tom. The president now plans to meet with Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado at the White House next week. Now, Tom, you'll recall the president had previously said that he did not believe that she had enough respect to lead Venezuela. But, since then, Machado has said that she would offer to give President Trump her Nobel Peace Prize as a token of gratitude. Tom?
Gabe Gutierrez and his team in Colombia all week. Gabe, we thank you for that. For more on that major meeting with oil executives at the White House tonight, I want to bring in Secretary of Energy Chris Wright, who was there with the president at the center of those talks. Secretary Wright, we thank you for joining us tonight. I do want to ask you first about President Trump's comments today that the oil companies will be dealing with the U.S. and not directly with Venezuela. How exactly will that work, and who are you dealing with directly inside of Venezuela?
Look, I got to set the context. We're 1 week in, or a little less than 1 week in. That dictator who's made Venezuela a criminal enterprise in free fall has been arrested, is in U.S. custody. We're working to stabilize the country right now. So there's just a few of us that are communicating with a few people in Venezuela to stabilize the economy and stabilize the security situation and start moving things in a positive direction. So, yeah, of course, in this first week, there's a few Americans dealing with a few people in Venezuela.
You come from the energy sector. Are you already having open conversations with Venezuela, you personally?
Yes, I am.
What can you give us a little bit? I know you can't tell us everything, but what is the relationship like? Are they open to this idea? I mean, obviously, they sort of have to deal with the United States at this point.
Yes, look. This is a country that's flouted sanctions, flouted laws, caused all sorts of struggles and damage to the United States for years. And I think President Trump's creative leadership said, hey, we're going to stop this. We're going to use our military, but mostly we're not going to fire any bullets. We're just going to put a blockade on their oil and bring some leverage and force the sanctions that have been on the law for some time. And lo and behold, the Venezuelans are extremely constructive in talking with us. They understand we're going to control the sale of their crude. In fact, it gets a lot of corruption out of their system. It means that the oil is going to be sold at a higher price. More funds are going to be generated than were before. Now, Venezuela's got all sorts of internal struggles, but now you've got the powerful United States, the resolve of President Trump. This is the road to peace and prosperity in Venezuela. This is the road to prosperity in the United States and a more peaceful hemisphere focused on commerce and not criminality.
Secretary Wright, as you know, there's a lot of division within Congress about this. Democrats are highly opposed. Here's a bit of what Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut said this week.
This is an insane plan. They are talking about stealing the Venezuelan oil at gunpoint for a period of time undefined as leverage to micromanage the country.
Secretary, you heard it right there. Democrats are saying the Trump administration is stealing Venezuela's oil at gunpoint and holding it hostage, essentially, to run the country. What do you say to that?
Oh, complete nonsense. Both of the premises are just ridiculous. Number one, we're not stealing anyone's oil. We're marketing that oil, putting it into accounts controlled by the U.S. government and sending funds to Venezuela. We sent more money to Venezuela, to their central authorities today, than they've seen in months. So that's absolutely not the case. The Venezuelans would be protesting instead of happily and cooperating with us going forward. And then to say here from the United States we're going to micromanage their economy. Here's someone who's just instinctively reacting against President Trump, probably because he's so dumbfounded by the amazing genius. We just had this incredible military operation to arrest a gun-running, drug-running thug, and now we've got a positive trajectory for Venezuela that's plagued the hemisphere for 20 years. Maybe he's a little bit upset about President Trump's success, he certainly wasn't speaking any sense there.
Secretary Wright, I do want to ask you, what was your sense of the oil executives inside the White House today? It seemed like there was some hesitation. I think it was even the CEO of Chevron saying right now Venezuela is uninvestable in. How do you get people behind your plan, especially the U.S. oil executives, which the president has touted as being on board for this plan?
Yes, and so those are comments by the CEO of Exxon, fabulous company, by the way, but their assets have been expropriated twice in Venezuela, and they haven't been in the country for a long time. Chevron, on the other hand, is the largest producer in Venezuela today, and said with President Trump's action and what's happening now, they have plans to grow their production by 50% in the next 18 to 24 months. And that from the largest producer in Venezuela. That's tremendous. That is rapid growth in oil production from just one American producer already on the ground in Venezuela.
Even Republicans who support President Trump are a bit hesitant. Republican Senator of North Dakota, Kevin Cramer, telling Politico this week. I'm going to read it to you. He said the U.S. controlling oil revenues would provide important leverage over Venezuela's government, given the fragile state of its economy. As long as we can control how they spend it, that could be really an important part of rebuilding the country and democracy in the region. Cramer said after the briefing, going on to say, as long as it's not sold at discount, I probably don't have a big problem with it, as long as they aren't going to use that dirty, cheap oil to flood the market. What do you say to that, right? Because the U.S. is producing oil and selling that oil.
Yes, we are. And of course, the oil is not being sold at a discount. It's being auctioned off and sold in the marketplace the way all crude is sold globally. So, no, we're trying to maximize the value we get for each barrel that's sold. But when you bring more oil on the market, is that going to be downward pressure on oil prices? Absolutely. But if you push oil prices down, you make gasoline and diesel and travel for Americans cheaper. That's center of President Trump's agenda. He's not here to help this industry or that industry. President Trump's agenda is to help the American people.
You know, it's a complicated process. Your background is in energy. To get that oil out of that ground, to get it safely into barrels, to get it safely shipped out. The president spoke sort of in vague terms about the protection to the oil companies. What does that look like, right? Because you're going to have a lot of oil workers out there working either in oil fields or on platforms. How will you protect them?
So, look, there's lots of oil field workers in Venezuela today. There's lots of Americans there. Of course, the vast majority of the work is done by Venezuelans, and they've been working in unsafe and rough conditions. Unfortunately, they've tolerated it. We're going to pivot. A week from now, things are not going to be like Midland, Texas, but they're going to be better than they were before President Trump's actions.
Will they be targets? Do you think they're going to be targets, Mr. Secretary?
I sure hope not. But look, there's going to be some instability in Venezuela for sure. We have to deal with that. Now we have the tools, the authority, and I think the alliance of the top interim authorities in Venezuela as our partners. So I think the situation is going to improve. But are there risks in a country that's changing trajectory just in the last week? Sure, there's going to be risks.
How does the math work for you? When Chavez nationalized the oil fields out there in the entire oil industry, American companies lost infrastructure, they lost profits. It's been, I think, almost 20 years since that happened. Do we add interest to that? Is that money owed back to American companies, and how is that repaid?
That is a great question that's going to be resolved in the future. Yes, the debts from the Venezuelan government to American companies and international companies are very large. The only way those debts can get paid off is the country gets fixed, the country starts becoming peaceful and prosperous again. That's President Trump's agenda. Peace and prosperity in Venezuela will allow American companies to get paid back, will allow American companies to invest more. There's wins all around here, but are there challenges? Yes. But all the traditional leaders for 25 years have sanctions or removed sanctions or didn't give sanctions for promise of this and promise of that. None of that worked. This president said, I'm not continuing what doesn't work. I got to do something different. And I salute his leadership, his boldness, the amazing military performance to extract two drug dealers masquerading as presidents of Venezuela.
Secretary Wright, we thank you for that, and we thank you for coming on Top Story tonight.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
All right, with that, we're going to turn now to Top Story's news feed, a check of the other headlines. We start with a key hearing today for Luigi Mangione. He appeared in a Manhattan courtroom where NBC News learned that the jury selection for his federal trial is tentatively set to start in September, and opening statements are expected to begin a month later. But that timeline could change if the judge allows prosecutors to seek the death penalty. Mangione is accused of shooting and killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. He's pleaded not guilty. And police in Florida are searching for thieves who they say robbed $500,000 in jewelry after cutting a hole in the store's wall. They reportedly busted through the bathroom of a building next door before tying up a worker in the shop and forcing a safe to be opened. Authorities say the getaway driver has been charged, but the two armed suspects are still at large. An update in the investigation into that deadly bar fire at a ski resort in Switzerland. Prosecutors there confirming one of the bar owners has been detained because they consider him to be a flight risk. Swiss authorities have opened a criminal investigation into the fire that broke out last week, killing 40 people and hurting more than 100 others. Dramatic video showing a car launching off a bridge after a crash in Quebec. You can see the car colliding into another vehicle before losing control and flying off the bridge into a frozen river. Police say the driver escaped from the car on his own and apparently wasn't hurt. Investigators now looking into what happened. We have new developments tonight in the investigation into that double homicide of an Ohio couple. The police chief now saying they have a lot of tips, but what they don't have is a suspect. NBC's Aaron McLaughlin breaks down the new details.
Tonight, police in Ohio still hunting for a suspect in the brutal murders of Spencer and Monique Tepe.
We have received numerous tips as it relates to this case, but we do not have at this moment a suspect that we have identified.
We're also learning new details about the police response in the hours following the double homicide. This newly released police body camera video from 9:15 that morning shows the first officer sent to do a wellness check on the Tepes, arriving at the wrong address.
He did everything that he was supposed to do. Knocked on the doors, checked the backyard, did all those things, but it was not the right location.
Less than an hour later, a friend discovered Spencer shot dead on the upper level of the home.
He appears dead. His blood.
Spencer and Monique's two children, ages 4 and 1, also inside the home unharmed. Police have indicated they believe the couple was murdered between 2 and 5 a.m. This is Columbus Police tell NBC News 2 mysterious 911 calls. One from April traced to the area of the Tepes home and made by a woman police say isn't Monique.
Do you need police, paramedics, or anything?
No, I'm okay.
The other from a home on the same block 11 days before the double homicide.
What's the emergency? Somebody's knocking on my door. They're trying to get in.
Are not connected to the ongoing murder investigation at this time. Tonight, the Tepes family remembering them as generous with kind hearts. Aaron McLaughlin, NBC News.
All right, coming up, the terrifying attack in Honduras caught on camera. A lawmaker hurt. Look at this. After an explosive device blew up right next to her head. We'll explain what happened and how she's doing. We're back now with the Americas and a stunning moment in Honduras. A lawmaker there injured after someone threw what appears to be an explosive device right by her head. The incident not doing much to cool tensions in the country after a Trump-backed presidential candidate won a highly contested victory. A warning, some viewers might find the images you're about to see disturbing. Here's George Solis.
The shocking moment caught on camera, what appears to be an explosive device detonating near Honduran opposition lawmaker Aurora Lopez. Here it is again, watch in the upper left corner as an object flies in, then explodes. The blast detonating just centimeters from Lopez, according to a statement from the National Party, causing wounds to her back. Photos and videos of the aftermath posted by her colleagues on social media showing her blazer in tatters and what appears to be her bloody shoulders. It's unclear if the attack was specifically targeting Lopez, but it comes amid heightened political tensions after a close and contested presidential election in the country that handed victory to a Trump-backed candidate.
I endorsed, as you know, the winning president, the man who won in Honduras.
Lopez is a part of that political party. Tonight, its leaders are accusing opposing politicians who just lost the election from the Liberty and Refoundation Party, or Libre Party, of being behind the attack, though they have not provided any clear evidence to support the claim. Saying in a video that the party is ending their leadership just as they started, by abusing the law. NBC News reached out to the leader of the Libre Party, the Honduran president, but is yet to hear back. Lawmakers from both parties had gathered Thursday to consider a Libre Party proposal for an election recount.
No hay en mi corazón rencor para nadie.
Lopez speaking from her hospital bed in a video shared with local media, saying there's no resentment in her heart for anyone, citing differences of opinion as the issue.
George Solis joins us now from Miami. So, George, what is next here? Will there be some type of recount, or will the election results be accepted?
Yeah, Tom, no question that this is still being highly contested. You have the National Party, the party that won, basically asking to safeguard this result, saying that any effort to recount is basically illegal here. If everything goes as planned, then the new president will be sworn in on January 27th. As for the investigation into how Lopez was attacked, well, that is still ongoing. Officials hoping that they have some answers soon.
Thanks so much for watching Top Story. That does it for us. I'm Tom Llamas in New York. Stay right there. More news on the way. We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.